chair and a couch, and now like a you can't tell because my backdrop's there, but I can roll my desk around. It's very awesome.
Hmm. I thought you always had one.
Well, I have one in my office, but that's outside. So in the heat, that's no fun.
Oh, it wasn't air conditioned.
It is, but you have to like go turn them all on, and it's a thing.
Yeah.
Then I'd have to walk to the house to get the coffee and the tea. And
It was funny coming back from being in the UK for 6 weeks. We went for a walk the other day and it was hot, humid, and sticky. And as we walked into the house, we're like, this is why we live here. It's so nice with AC.
well, it's all the Scottish folks that came over for soccer. They're like, "Oh, you have air conditioning everywhere?" Like,
Everywhere, yes.
They probably needed a hoodie just because I carry a hoodie around because it's so cold.
over air conditioning. I'd
Yeah.
rather that though than sitting in my house or like Maisie was saying, just sleeping in a puddle of sweat because you can't do anything about it. That's no fun.
Okay, it is noon Central Time, so I'm going to kick us off here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third Thursday of the month webinar for Inventive, and we have co-founders James Shaw and Andrew Seymour. Um, I want to start with this is a celebration year for you. It's been 10 years since you envisioned this company, and James started 2 years in, so he's had his 8-year anniversary. But what was the vision, the original vision, Andy, for Inventive when you first started, and how did you and James come together?
I think our biggest thing is that we've worked in so many places, consulting places, where it at some point all businesses tip where it's like, ooh, we need to get a little bit more profit, and then you start making some cultural impacting decisions to do the wrong thing. And we felt like we wouldn't do that. And so we've kind of always started with core values and making sure that we don't do anything that negates those along the way. And I think that's been kind of the heartbeat is instead of just being a vendor, we want to be a partner. We want to work with the people, not necessarily just for the people. It's a very subtle pivots, but at the end of the day, somebody had said something that I really liked. As long as you work here, you'll be able to go home and go to sleep knowing that you did the right thing. That didn't actually work out at that particular place, but here I feel like we do live according to that. So
Yeah, that was just a sign on the wall that didn't mean anything, huh?
literally,
Yeah.
yes, signs on the wall, like physically signs on the wall. Yeah.
So now we're accountable for basically doing what we say. Do you know what I mean? And there's no one else to blame. So we're
Yes.
very much aware of that, you know?
James, you said this is the longest place you've been. You've had seven
Yeah.
and a half year stints at other places. What sort of makes you get up every morning for Inventive?
Yeah, it's just the ownership that everybody has at the company is unlike anything I've seen anywhere else. We've had happy teams at other places, but they're in departments or, that no one knows each other, and usually they're bigger companies. But Inventive's the first place that I've worked where everybody knows everybody and we have a common goal. So it makes a huge difference. And we just don't hire assholes. Everybody does, and we haven't. Do you know what I mean? So it's a huge thing.
Anything to add, Andy? I feel like you had a
Well, clearly we embrace speaking transparently. So
Yeah.
it's
Oops.
interesting because we're our whole mantra is like getting shit done. Like, and I think for the first maybe 3 years, I don't remember exactly where we pivoted. We would say it internally, but there was a lot of angst and hesitation to say that with customers during the sales process or even once they become customers. And then once we actually made the pivot of, this is actually how we live, we believe firmly in saying this out loud. And once we started doing it, the customers that liked that we would say that out loud and then live it, they celebrate it. And if you don't like that, cool. There's many other vendors that are more polished from a corporate perspective. So
Yeah, we renewed our core values about 3 years in. The ones we had were okay, do you know what I mean? But they were a bit blah, do you know what I mean? And they weren't really us. So we shortly after I started, we just kind of reviewed stuff, and candor is our second core value, and it makes such a difference. I I basically suggested half jokingly, get shit done brilliantly as our tagline, because what we had was kind of meaningless. It was one of those, corporate taglines, but
We do
this meant
software stuff.
something. And immediately some people on LinkedIn said, "Oh, I'll never do business with you." And we were like, "Oh, did we
Okay.
make the wrong decision?" But ultimately, many, many more people said, "Oh, I love this." And we gained customers from it, and we continued to do the right thing that way.
Partners. We gain partners.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's dive in because I am super excited about this conversation. Because you guys come from very different perspectives when it comes to how to use AI and how to use AI for business. And, a lot of our narrative right now is, we're not just here to do features and benefits and pull levers and push buttons for you. We're here to dig into your business and help your business, transform and hopefully grow and be profitable. So you created Profit Finder. So Profit Finder, the original. I'll let you tell it, Andy. What was the original thought behind Profit Finder, and where are we now?
Yeah, I think the original vision was really around us learning how and when to automate. And automation is not always an application of AI, sometimes it is. And then also how to bring AI into businesses, so automation and AI. Um, and that's kind of the story that still exists on the Profit Finder website. However, we've now pivoted that quite a bit more to where it's more a fintech partnership. It may include automations and AI and so on, but that's totally not the focus. The focus is now how do we shine a light on places that you're leaking profit within a company or where you can grow and scale? How do you leverage the people that you have working in your company to be more efficient? So that could either be you take on more work with the same headcount, or maybe you pivot some of those people to do things that are more a human oriented type of work. And then the upside is how in that efficiency, it's not just be more efficient and get the same results. There's also a lot of room for vastly improving the results by adding this efficiency or repeatability of the things that you're doing. So that's
So
kind of where we're taking it.
James, you've implemented this into Inventive, and over the last, I don't know, 10 months or so, you're seeing a change. Talk to me about like how you've dog fooded this or how we've eaten our own cooking when it comes to the Profit Finder story.
Yeah, when Profit Finder first came up, it was very automation focused and not really operations focused, at least the way I read it. And we went off and tried to find some partners to help do that, and we found one. Um, but meanwhile, I was 2 years in probably to well, it's a continuous process of improving the way Inventive operations runs. And we now know how much profit we made an hour ago. Do you know what I mean? And when I was talking to a CPA and mentioning this, and they were like, "What? How do you do that?" And I said, "Well, we don't rely on QuickBooks that's only closed out, a month or 6 weeks in the future to look back and say, well, we made money on a Tuesday 6 weeks ago. We have our system now built that is real time giving us information, and it pulls in everything from banking and credit cards, all the expenses, all of the payroll, everything on an hourly basis. You know what I mean? So I realized that I was already doing that, and I built it, admittedly, with a whole bunch of spreadsheets linked together in a very non-engineering way, but they kind of evolved over time. But when the Profit Finder idea came up, this light bulb went off, and I realized, oh, well, that's basically what I do anyway, what I'd done for Inventive. So um, when we found our first client, I basically we ended up both redoing the entire operations department of Inventive using AI-driven development, much faster and much better than I did before with spreadsheets. Um, so it's now all database driven. All of the data ends up in the database, and we can pull real-time reports that are much richer than I could ever do myself. Because the AI is now involved, right? I can ask it questions. There's people in our operations team that can literally just say, you know, how much did this project make yesterday, or something like that, literally via text, and get answers back. Do you
Query.
know what I mean? So it just changes
I was,
everything.
I was gonna say it gives access to the humans who might not be spreadsheet jockeys like you know, they might be
That's what forced that pivot. It's like we have 5,000 spreadsheets. Which one do I look at for this problem? And it's like for James,
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's like I go over here, I go over there, but
We have
other
a million numbers, you know what I mean?
right.
And the spreadsheets condense that to 1,000 numbers, and I could see the patterns in them. Do you know what I mean? It's being an ex-engineer, it was easy for me to do the pattern recognition, but that's literally what AI is. It's a big pattern recognition engine, right? So we've now got it so that the V3, if you like, of operations at Inventive is a warning sheet with 15 things that you need to look at. And it's literally telling the operations staff, look at this piece of data, and it's out of millions of pieces, right? And that's all AI driven. So it really changed the game.
I
I
think that
reckon.
was our biggest flaw was that we were bringing data to people, assuming that those people could see patterns and decide based on the 20 things that we're bringing to your attention, which is the most important thing to work on. And the big pivot, because for those listening, this isn't necessarily new. We've effectively created a data lake across 10 different piles of data and then put some analytics on top of it. But where it is a slight pivot is adding AI as the human interface. So it's not necessarily SaaS, but now AI first, and allowing it to bring a specific piece of data. So focus on this. This is the highest priority thing. And then the next step is not just here's some data, but here's the action that you should go take to deal with whatever that may be.
And I think there's another subtle thing there. Like, this is not a new concept, but the concepts that exist out there are for enterprise level, massive companies. Like Dell has this, right? Had it for 20 years, and they spend millions of dollars a year on it. Like, what we're doing now is literally available to small businesses.
Right.
You said it perfectly. I was actually going to make that pivot because this is about access to tools and operational skill sets that weren't accessible. And, one of the things Andy and I were talking about is, normally for a growing company, you would bring consultants in and say, what data do I need and how do I get it? And let me overlay Power BI or whatever all the massive data tools
Cool
can be.
isms.
Yeah. So I dig in more what this means for small to medium-sized business and even startups who need to have access to information to properly make decisions.
Yeah, well, we kept coming across small businesses that really had no idea if they were making money, like literally had no idea. If there was money in the bank, they were happy, but they really didn't know if they were profitable. They didn't know anything about their business, really. I mean, a lot of people are bakers making baking pies, do you know what I mean? But that doesn't turn them into a bakery business, do you know what I mean? So um, it was kind of eye-opening that really no one else was doing what we thought was mandatory to run a small business. Like, small businesses are extremely dependent on cash flow and things like that, and you need to know what money's coming in and how much you've made, as you know what the bottom line is going to be in advance. You know what I mean? So running a business blind, I just can't even imagine. I mean, I guess that's partly why so many businesses fail, is that they just don't know if they're making money. So
Running blind creates stress. And I feel like understanding where you're at and what subtle pivots you can make along the way to alleviate that stress is kind of what this does. And for me, what's fascinating is one of our first clients in this is really a CPA firm. Your accountant and a whole group of accountants don't have access to this kind of data, even though they are actually the ones that have all the right data. They just don't have all the tooling they need to be able to forecast where they're at in real time. So,
they have all the data too late. That's the problem. So
right.
they don't even know if they're profitable until the end of the year. And I'm like, that's crazy. It's a CPA firm. Do you know what I mean? So Like for the price of a person, they get a full on operation system that's real time, you know?
So at the I'd like to talk about when they need to call you because as you guys were developing Profit Finder, you also had to create a price point that people could enter into an engagement with Inventive that was not a full software development multi-year. I mean, we'd like for them to work with us multi-year, but I mean a multi-year project, distinct project. So how did you kind of come to terms with, this is what we can do for these small to medium-sized businesses at a price point they can enter into with us?
It's my favorite topic lately. I feel like we've been for 9 years in the business of selling 6 and 7 figure products, which that's difficult for, that is not a small business price point. And now with AI, we're so fast and so efficient that we can do, much smaller things where it could be four or, five. Well, I say that, $4,000, $5,000 things are up, but as James says, the easy way to do math is figure a low cost employee over time will get you advantages. And the nice thing about it is that we can ask, what is your most painful thing, and solve that this month, and then solve something else the next month. And but the goal is that you keep adding value over time, and you get to a point where you effectively have a company operating system that is telling you how to think about your company, how to plan accordingly, and so on.
And you're doing with this with a company who you worked with, who then is now pivoting to become a product company because they were able to see their profit differently. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that's more on the our accelerator program side, where we started with literally with the Profit Finder pitch of we'd love to take a small business and shine a light on the intelligence part of running the business to show you where you are, because companies, a simple case, you've signed up for all these subscriptions, they still run, so it's like a rocket money problem, and nobody questions it. So that's lost profit that you're not paying attention to. So the goal was, let's get started. I think we identified 70 small projects that we could do. We had some conversation. We picked the one that was the most pain point. In this case, it was really a customer service problem that they were having. We were able to automate some of that flow, so it provided a better customer experience. It relieved the pressure on the team. And so overall, they got more efficient. And that's less about finding profit and more about creating a reliable experience for his customers, so they become sticky. Now you found additional profit, but over that we fixed a few problems, uh, and shined a light on there's a bigger problem here, because this particular customer knows everybody else, all of his competitors, all of his peers, all of the people in the industry that he worked with. And he's like, he was at a point where he was looking to acquire as a growth strategy his competitors as they were going out of business. And then he realized, well, there's actually a platform play here. We could probably launch a product and make all of my competitors customers of, effectively an AI oriented platform that, helps create efficiencies and reduces the pain of people running these businesses by either adding AI next to your employees or having agents do some of the work. So
I think what I was also getting at too, and James, maybe you can jump in on this, is that, you're not saying let's eliminate humans. You're saying let's let them do other things and let the agents do things that will make those humans stronger.
Oh, absolutely. We're not, none of this is taking away from anybody's existing role. It just transforms their role into something much more efficient and enjoyable, because there's still problems to fix in a business, right? It's just people were wasting time trying to find them and guessing wrong, and now it's just handed to you. And I do want to make the point that even at a low cost, these are all fully customized and bespoke for every customer, right? Every customer has their own data sources, their own business rules, which are long and complicated. Do you know what I mean? It's not something that a product will ever be able to do, off the shelf. So what they're getting is something that's literally working in ways that we would don't even envisage until we, get into the bakery business or the CPA business or whatever it is. and find out that it's really important that they know how much that Apple sauce cost or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's very customized and it makes their job much more efficient. Just because, if they want to know every hour a particular metric, we just create a warning and that's what they see.
Well, and I think a, a lot of people feel like they might um, that they need to hire a BCG or Anderson or something to get those answers, but you're able to ask those questions quickly, get to the source, be consultative, of course, but ask those questions and then help them decide what that custom looks like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first few months is, of course, all the data ingestion and setting it all up and learning what is actually important. Because even on day one, they have one thing, and then it turns into 100 things, and then you end up building a whole system that helps their everyone in their business. Most of the people, well, all of the people that we've helped so far have rejiggered their business now to work with the new operating system, which is really nice. A 25-year-old business suddenly to pivot to use the new AI driven operating system is a lot of fun for them and us because it's like takes away all the drudge of what they used to do, really opens their eyes to focusing on getting back to what they used to do, which is serving their customers.
Who are some of
I
the
think
industries? Go ahead, Andy, you go.
I was going to say I think there's a useful pivot just to tie back to the title of this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts, James, on dealing with AI and math, where numbers need to be accurate, and what are some of the approaches that you do to make sure that the answers you're getting, we can't blindly, especially in math, accept what the LLMs are telling you. What are your approaches to keeping that honest?
That's a great question because I think you've talked about this before. AI is really good at making shit up. And and that's why people have to be involved. So yeah, I tend to work with Codex more. You tend to work with Claude Code more, but it's the same thing. What I found is that I still have views of the data that are more complex so that we can cast the human eyes over it. I'm still doing my pattern matching on the client's data. They might not even see those views, right? But I want to make sure that there's a sanity check always before they get to rely on it. And they do come up less and less often now that I detect a problem. And then you tighten the rules and stuff like that. But you always need that oversight. It's not a one and done thing. And this is why we're always structuring this as a long-term, retainer style project rather than a something that we're going to build and walk away from. It's a very fluid and everything's always changing. They only need one of their data sources to change in some way or a business rule to change. And honestly, our operating system is causing the business rules to change too, right? They realize they don't need to do things that way anymore because it doesn't make sense. We don't need to do that anymore, right? We already know that this thing is being tracked and it will be red or yellow or green on the dashboard. So we don't have to worry about doing all of that other sanity checking that they were doing themselves.
Right. There's probably like an admin with a or somebody with a calendar ping saying, go look at this, and they don't need
Mhm.
to have that anymore. They can
Right.
um
I always like the notion that we apply to humans, and every time I talk about AI, I refer to it as a human. But the idea of trust but verify is so important in this world where I'm having AI help me do things. You just can't trust. Period. Like you have to do the other part. More important.
The funny thing is, more and more I ask it questions, and I call him George, by the way. I ask George questions because I can't say ChatGPT or Codex as fluently, so we employ George. But I'm always asking him, that doesn't look quite right, doesn't feel right to me. My spidey sense goes off. Nowadays, he's always right. Do you know what I mean? Which I love. It's like, oh, that's because you did this, and I'm like, you're right, good. Good talk.
Good time.
I use it in my sales decks all the time when I'm usually, well, Mimi and I is a good example. We'll collect a lot of intelligence about projects that we're trying to close. And I'll be reading in my presentation, I'll see like all these metrics. And I'm like, where did you get that metric from? And it will remind on this day you spoke to this person and they mentioned this thing. And it's like, so there are definitely some superpowers that bringing AI into all of the conversations is definitely beneficial. But I still ask questions.
Well, and because of your experience level, you do have that spidey sense that you can say, "I'm not sure how things are." We've had this conversation a couple times in our other past webinars, but it's worth repeating is that having that engineering background, having that thought process of running companies, is so important if you're going to instill an AI agent into your business because it could go off the rails. And the purpose of this webinar was to say you cannot get this wrong. This is really important information that I can't, get wrong. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Well, the thing that I don't think most people don't think about the whole life cycle. So, James and I build things with LLMs. Like, so I do use Claude a lot more, but I always have ChatGPT go against my Claude results. So I'm using two different models to compete and validate the result. And that's very important because it's still software at the end of the day. And every time you get a new model, like you may have a vetted pipeline that produces great results, but then you update to a new model. And in that new model, they may favor this kind of thing over that kind of thing. And you may find that you get bad results just by changing the model to something that's smarter or more efficient or what have you. So it's still very much a software developer's mindset. You have to build rubrics around or tests or validation into the running system where we don't make the assumption that once we hit right or done, that it's done. Just because there are ghosts in the machine that you don't control. So the only thing you control is validation.
I think the better answer I could have given is that there's multiple layers. Like even in our dashboards, right? We still have the semi-low level things that are more suited to me. And then at the other end of the scale, the CEO of that company will get an email summary that has the 5 points on it: revenue, gross profit, net profit, debt, liquidity, things like that, which are one sentence with a yellow green
I
traffic
love
light.
emails.
You know what I mean? And it's just so different that you can condense, a month's worth of data into a simple 5 sentence thing. And I'm not writing that. It's all automated and AI driven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet a lot of these companies are, coming in to the conversation with a lot of SaaS, platforms that they've accumulated over the years. Through this process, we've been talking a lot about, well, we can just build our own SaaS things. We can just make our own products. We don't need to rely on, an off the shelf something and Frankenstein it with something else and hope that we get what we want. So I guess, you know, I'm not saying go against the SaaS products that are probably really good out there, but how does this process have them help people, help businesses assess all of the platforms they're renting, um, and maybe create something that they buy?
But I honestly think this has got to be a scary time for a product company because you have groups like us where it used to be a product would solve 80% of my problem and the other 20% was just in the way or caused us pain or we'd have to build stuff around it, any number of things. But we would put up with it because the cost of replacing it, I would have to actually move my system out of that one into something else. It probably just has additional pains. But now we're in a space where we can clone the software that we use and rub all the rough edges off and get rid of the monthly subscription and like it. So it's an interesting world if you have the ability to especially take small software and just make your own version of it. But even big systems now I think are under threat, where we can replicate largely what it does and integrate it deeply into our system. The other part that's been interesting for me, you may have 20 different subscriptions to things, none of them communicate. You have to build this data lake thing. You can start zapping those things away and just start building your own operating system, which includes things like Fathom or things like your hours logging tool or any number of things. They're all within reach now, and it takes days, not years, and it takes hours, whatever the cost of your hours are, not six figures to swap these things in and out. So exciting for me, but less exciting for people who have one product offering.
James, anything to add about, even the way you've looked at Inventive's SaaS products that were,
Yeah, we're all forced to use things that do most of what we want today, and I think that's just going to go away. It's going to go away quickly, because why would you put up with that when you can build your own that literally does exactly what you want, and you throw away the functionality you don't even use. Do you know what I mean? It's very different, and it seems implausible to most people that that's possible, but it's possible and so cheap.
and perhaps SaaS products can become more flexible with what their customers want versus product engineers building something that they just think the universe wants. So I think there's maybe an opportunity here for a lot of product builders to be more customer centric and really understand what the use cases are, maybe for some of these 10 to 20-year-old products, and adjust. And they can adjust quickly. You can adjust in a week versus before it's like, oh, if we have a new product
Yes.
feature, that's a 6-month roadmap.
Yeah.
Well, it's an
Now,
hour. Yeah, it's an hour. I just asked George to do something different, and it happens, and it's deployed. It's continuous integration gone mad. Do you know what I mean? It's literally real time.
well, and on the accelerator side, where we want to partner with people that have great industry disrupting ideas, it used to be, oh, it's going to take a year to build the thing. Is it even worthwhile? Can you get to market quick enough for before somebody else? But now it's a completely different conversation. It's like, well, is there anybody in the industry that you're trying to go into that has 80% of what you like? Cool, we'll start there. We'll replicate that, and then we can add your special sauce on top of that and get to market in 2 months, like from start to finish. You're in and selling. So it's fascinating. I think this is kind of like when the internet hit business initially. This whole AI wave, the positive part of it will be very disrupting in ways that I think benefit the customer, less the business. Like, if a customer wants it, they're going to find it or build it. It's all within reach. So
Right. And now they have the control to ask for it. One of the things that's fun about Inventive is that we have all these AI channels where we're talking about, we're sharing and creating, and everybody has a side product they're working, not everybody, but a lot of people have side products. You know, what is the message that you'd like to send to people who have ideas out there, and how should they be thinking about creating their own product ideas?
well, there are platforms, the whole vibe coding thing. There are lots of platforms to take somebody with an idea and vibe code something. But thousands of those things are created every day and none are shipped. And so I think you're still afflicted with somebody like me who has lots of ideas. There has to be somebody like James there also to be sure that, okay, cool, which one are we going to ship? When is it going to get shipped? Can we stop making new things and focus on getting some things actually done? So if you're afflicted with lots of ideas, you probably don't have the skill to ship by yourself unless it's a small thing. Small things are easy, but so find a good partner in your creativity.
Yeah. And James, the partnership that you're looking for through our Foundry program, are people who might have an inkling of something and then, need someone to execute that for them.
Yeah, ultimately we're looking for experts in their field, right, who are really good at understanding what the industry wants, their industry wants. They have some money to invest in a system. It doesn't have to be like it used to be with $500,000 or hell, $3 million we've had before. But it doesn't need to be that level anymore. But you do need, monthly liquidity to employ us to help, but then you can just turn that industry knowledge into a product that you use and it's exactly what you imagined.
Yeah. I lost track of my question, so give me a second here. I was
Oh,
having so much fun riffing with you guys. Um, what, a lot of the people that we're looking to talk to, and in fact, James, you've been having conversations on LinkedIn with folks who are non-tech, um, you know, non-tech forward, I would say, they're in the operation space or they're in the revenue generating space. What kind of things do you think non-technical people need to be asking for when they are seeking a partner who can do the technical pieces? Because they might not have the language for it, but they're like, I'm hearing all my peers using AI, doing these great things, but I don't know where to. They might not know where to start because they're smart, but they may not know what questions to ask and where to start the conversation.
well, I don't think you want to be partnering with someone who leads with lots of talk about AI. Do you know what I mean? AI is the tool that we use to enable us to do things much cheaper and faster, right? But it's a very small part of what they'll see, right? They will see maybe a text interface or something like that where they're allowed to ask questions of the model, you know what I mean? But um, I wouldn't say it's AI from their perspective, you know what I mean? That's really an internal tool for us. So if someone's coming in and overwhelming you with all of the latest buzzwords, and we've had many buzzwords, it used to be blockchain and then it was something else, and now it's AI. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, it's kind of almost meaningless as a word because it means so much and so many different things. Um, so I think what people need to be looking for is accountability and trust with a company that actually is willing to understand their business. Do you know what I mean? And that's usually a small company. Do you know what I mean? It's you're not going to get that sort of responsiveness from a massive conglomerate. Do you know what I mean? It's like they have products and bits to shift and invoices to send. You know what I mean? And it's just a machine. So we're very much on that partner level where we want to understand, what are the 5 things that you don't know about your business, and then we'll figure out a way of giving you that.
Well, and to answer it from the implementer perspective, I think AI gets you there, but I most of the time AI should not be the final solution. So, as an example, you may solve a problem using AI, having a conversation about the problem. The solution is morphing over time, but once you get to the solution, you're actually usually better off having AI provide you a coded solution because that coded solution won't shift as models change. The outputs will stay consistent and so on. And so if we're talking about, filtering data for a certain thing, well, AI is just writing a program to run against your data to get that output, but you're asking AI to do it, so it's not as efficient. It has a lot of cost associated with it that you don't necessarily need to run with every single operation. You can just have it, build and output some code, run that code in a reliable, low cost, efficient way. So most people, it's like, "Ooh, I have George or I have AI, and it does the thing," and it's like, well, that's great, but you need to go one more step to be super secure and reliable and so on, and get the AI out where you can. It shouldn't stay in the pipeline for all situations.
That's a good point. I assume that people know that, but we're using AI to build a system which is a standalone system. No, there's no AI involved in it necessarily. We use AI in the output very specifically if it's needed, but generally is not.
Yeah, that kind of leads into one of my questions of where don't you need AI? You know, where do you need to be like AI doesn't need to be in this
Well,
Yeah.
as an example, a traditional way of writing software, we want to build unit tests and integration tests and functional tests. Well, when I ask AI, hey, go test this thing, if I'm not paying attention, I may think AI is going off and like, oh, I'm testing the thing. But really, AI is generating tests and then running those tests to test the thing. But as soon as you have that artifact, instead of asking AI to go run your tests, you can just run a command line that runs the tests and you get the results back. So there are a lot of places where traditional software development stay intact. Where AI is awesome is that it will write way more many or way more tests as far as like volume of tests, but the quality of what's being tested will probably also be better than if a human was to write, 2 or 3 tests. AI can probably write 15. And when we're talking about fast running tests, more isn't necessarily bad as long as it's testing valuable things. But the other side is AI can integrate with Playwright to run functional tests, which generally speaking are a thing that are complicated and time consuming for humans to get right. But Codex and Claude Code can generate those things quickly. And now you're building up a repository of all these tests again, which is a validation layer to the system that you're building. But it creates the test. It doesn't necessarily need to be involved in running the test, as an example.
Absolutely. Like, so it happens to me all the time. I find something that is broken, a bug, and the first thing you do is write tests, and you just say, please write tests to detect this early next time so I don't have to worry about it again, and then fix it, right? It's the same concept we always had as engineers. You always write the test first, make it go red, and then make it go green. But the the ability for you to just do that is so fast now, and the documentation, I'm gonna say something now that I probably shouldn't, but engineers are not great at writing documentation and they hate it and they never do it. And you look at, a GitHub repo and you have no idea what's going on. It's just a mass of code, right? Whereas nowadays, an AI built repo is a wonderful thing. It just reads like a Stephen King book. Like there's full documentation of everything. Do you know what I mean?
Amazing
You
pull
went through
requests, amazing
everything.
Jira tickets. Like,
It's
yeah,
great.
Yeah. And so another agent or another human could pick that work back up. It's not just all
Absolutely.
in someone's head or,
but I
um,
feel like that's the engineer's problem to solve now. I feel like writing code, not as, I don't want to say it's not as important. It's important, but it's not the thing now. Now our thing is how do we get more efficient at writing less code because AI will write a lot of code. So you got to build a lot of guardrails in, but all those guardrails become skills. And so now we've got one client who their whole thing with us is not to build them a product, it's to build replicas of internet products, and those internet products are things that are usually high traffic. They're very popular websites, but they're building it in a way so that agents can go be trained on these different things. So you can ask an agent, go buy me tickets at this venue in this city at that time, that kind of thing. And so the goal for us is to become super efficient, and we're replicating like massive properties in weeks, like 2 weeks, whole thing's done. And so each time now we're having retrospectives about, well, where were we a little bit slow? How do we go faster? Build some skills, bring those skills into the next project. And each project just keeps going faster because the human engineering is like, well, what's slowing us down? What's causing us pain? How do we get the pull requests to, include architectural reviews and like do all these things? And how do we get humans out of that work where we can have models kind of amplify the efficiency, and as a result the outputs get better and better and better and quicker and quicker and quicker. So
yeah. And I think engineers, and I want to come back to the business side, but I think engineers have to become better communicators with each other
yeah.
and sharers. You can't be in your own little silo. But let's go back to you know, what questions would you like a CFO or a COO to come to you with? Like, what would be a great question for them to start thinking about and say, like, I would like to talk to a software team about this? What would be that entry point question?
I'd like to hear what their problem is. Do you know what I mean? It's like if someone came to me and this is what one of our customers did. It's like we don't know how have any idea how to even compute this manually ourselves. Can you help? And then you look at their data and you say, like, absolutely, it's, this, um, because, they're not experts in operating systems. How would they possibly know? Do you know what I mean? But the key is to know what they think their problem is. Do you know what I mean? And how ask us if we can solve it.
Yeah.
It's
It's more interesting to enter a conversation with curiosity versus I know what my problem is and that you just fix it.
right, exactly. I mean, they don't need to know what the solution is. We just need to know what they're missing from their business. A lot of it that we focus on is timeline, like we can get you the same data faster, but sometimes we find data that they just don't even know how to get from their business at all.
Well, they didn't know there was a question that existed that they should be asking, and that they already have the data to answer it. It's not there. A lot of businesses just run like it's like, oh, it's always worked this way. I just have this pressure, and there are question marks in my business that I don't know, and I'm okay with that. We'll just keep going. And but then you plan your business around those potholes, and that's not great. So
Can I give a humorous example that kind of
Please.
makes the point? There,
Yeah.
there was a company downtown that we went to help many years ago now,
mm,
and they were getting paperwork from the state to do with construction, and they had people in their building that would take those pieces of paper. It was a room full of old women. They would take these pieces of paper and they would scan them into their computer. And what was the other thing they used to do, Andy? They used to,
well, so they would do the data entry off of the originating paperwork, and it would go into a database. This
yeah,
is this is the amazing part. I think the first part probably has to happen in some way, but then when it goes through the departments and it needs to exit this department to go to the next department, I shit you not, they would print the data out
right.
of the database, walk this stack like a ream of paper to 50 feet away to the next desk, and they would type it all back in to the same database. But we're like, you're kidding me. Like, it's literally right there. Why would you?
And
And
they've
again,
always done it this way. Always
that's
done.
just the process. That's how
That
we
was
do
how
it.
they did it. Yeah.
And these people had kind of aged out. Like they should not still be working, and they may not come to work one of the days. And this whole company is like worried about, oh, what happens if Janice doesn't show up? Like, that's a hole in the system. It's like, yeah, that
Yeah,
still exists these days.
we've been having these conversations because I feel like our sense is there's a lot of companies and organizations out there who don't know what they don't know in terms of what resources are available to them. And like if it's a whether it's a law firm or a CPA firm or what other types of industries might not be thinking in this way or know that they have access to fixing these pain points.
Right. No, because that's just the way we do it. Yeah. Most things are easily fixable nowadays, for sure.
Well, you've gone through all of my questions. We don't have any questions from the audience, but we have a lot of viewers, so that's fun. So thank you for coming. Before we wrap, is there anything that I haven't asked you to that you felt like we needed to jump in on?
I don't
No, I
know.
think I think I've just been talking over your questions.
No, you guys have been great. Yeah, I think that one of the things that, I always want people to get out of these conversations is that, there are great humans behind the AI systems. And these humans are thinking about business challenges, not just, what levers can I pull and buttons can I push, tomorrow. And so I think it's a better entry point for any kind of industry, of any kind of engineers that are in this industry is to have a business focus versus a building focus.
I guess the thing that I would leave with is, if you run a business, just ask the question, what are you most worried about? What is your biggest fear in your company? and have that conversation. Have it with us, have it with some kind of a CEO group or something like that, but have the conversation. And if you're managing systems, there's usually the case where old software, it's critical to the business, but it's old. We should do something to move it or migrate it or whatever. And now is kind of the time, again, whether it's with us or with your folks using the right tools, it's just not a six-figure effort anymore to migrate and do a lot of these things, especially like old code bases. They're specifically a documented thing. If you just want to update, this shape to the same shape, software is so fast now that there's not really any reason to hold off on any of those kinds of projects.
You shouldn't be running your business scared. You know what I mean? Like we can
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about modernizing versus improving a legacy system, or, I mean, where do you land on that? Do you feel like there's enough just improvements that can be made on systems that are already out there? Or do you feel like there's better tools that people need to be exploring?
It depends, because if you're a big company and you've got a lot of human process or even other tooling process around it, drastically making changes to one of the steps in a large workflow, that may be low cost, but the ripple effect may not be low cost. So that's a consideration. If you're a small or medium business where you're a little bit more nimble, then by all means, if you're going to update software or you've got rough edges on an existing integration, or you've got a lot of SaaS subscriptions, and again you're not using 100% of all the things, we're actively considering, as an example, getting rid of HubSpot. It's a great tool, lots of rough edges. Now is the time to maybe take inventory of those things, and it may be, again, replace what you have with the newer version if it's old software. But I think if you're on subscriptions, there's definitely a lot of room to maybe build your own thing, maybe get rid of some of the subscriptions you have. It just depends. Again, I always go back to, don't do it because it's cool. Like what's the business reason you need to do these things? If it doesn't work for your business, if it's a large money going out every month and you want to reduce that, there's lots of reasons, but have a reason. Don't just do the thing.
What's the trigger? What's the trigger that people should be thinking about? You don't want to just have like, oh, my gut is telling me it's been 3 years. I haven't thought about my systems. So
I have an
Yes.
answer. I'll let James go first.
It's tough because I don't think people um, are wanting to pull that trigger. Do you know what I mean? Like the status quo, everything works. Why mess with it? You know what I mean? And it's hard to know how to push them over the edge. Do you know what I mean? But once you do, it's a ripple effect that is incredible to watch. Do you know what I mean? Like one company we worked with was using a server-based copy of QuickBooks that was, all encapsulated internally. No one could access it from outside. Well, it's obviously not accessible by our software either, right? So they went to QuickBooks Online. This is just an example, and they've been wanting to do it for 10 years, but hadn't because it's scary. And now they've done it. It's just opened up so much. It's like, oh crap, that was so old. This is so much better. And it's just like the energy in the company has changed.
status quo is the enemy, right?
It really is. You think it's safe, right? But it's really you're just dying slowly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
the
it's hard.
the fire department had a different way of saying it, but tradition is the enemy of improvement,
Mm,
and status quo is kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, we've always done it that way. And the downside of James and I is we like the idea, if we just make an improvement every day or every week, by the end of the year, you're probably a different company, like you operate differently, but you've made lots of improvements. And that's kind of what has gotten us to year 10, is like constantly asking the question of what could be better? How could this be less painful? How could we work less and deliver the same value? And that means there's a lot of change. And so we kind of like the change, but not everybody does. So that creates a different kind of pain. So I always go back to, to answer the question, when do you start? Like, when do you pull the trigger? There has to be a certain amount of pain before you probably can justify it. It can't just be, I'm going to get rid of a $20 subscription, build infrastructure, and now host my own software. That doesn't give you the value that that you probably need. There needs to be something larger to it than that. So, but
Yeah.
you'll know usually. You just, again, you need to have a conversation, ask questions, and that will probably, change your glasses of the world, and then you can move forward.
Yeah, be out there and seek out those conversations. And that's something we could probably close with, is that, this team is very open to just having a conversation. You just, doesn't mean that, you're committing to anything. We just, are open to those initial, question and curiosity interactions.
Yeah, most of our clients didn't come to us. They just, heard of it and it just left this like idea in their mind of like, is that possible? Could we do that? Do you know what I mean? And the answer is always yes. Do you know what I mean? So it's great. We were just talking to our CPA and it just turned into a thing, partnership.
That's awesome. And Andy, I love the story of you like trying to buy a piece of exercise equipment, and you're like, wait, this was a terrible process. I can fix this for you.
I hate to say it, but it's kind of my default. My favorite story is I realized, man, I work a lot, and I'm constantly working. So I looked up a thing: is there such a thing as Workaholics Anonymous? And there was. So I went to the website, and I'm going to go talk to these. Wait a minute, your website sucks. Like, I could help you fix this. Like, it's kind of my go-to thing. But yeah, I'm amazed at how many business owners don't put themselves in the shoes of their customer, and they grow and they grow, and people make other decisions, and you get to a point. Last week, I think it was, we ordered pizza from Little Caesars. We received a pizza delivery order from Pizza Hut, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So we call Little Caesars, and they're like, well, we can't help you. We sent your order out via one of the delivery services. You need to call them for customer service. And I'm like, but I ordered pizza from you. I don't get it. And now I have pizza from your competitor. That makes even less sense. And like, ultimately,
They outsource their pizza.
well, we had to take the receipt from the Pizza Hut order to the house because it has the address on it. We went to the house of the competitor, and there, lying on their front porch, is our order. And they already knew that they received the wrong order, and they thought somebody would come get it. And like, that's horrible. It's no different than like grocery stores making you check out your own groceries, but then they're going to security check you on the way out the door. I'm like, this is really bad.
The funny thing is, when I heard that story, we ordered pizza that night because I was suddenly hungry for pizza.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the pizza was good once we got it. I just had to reheat it. Oh well.
On that note, we will close out, but thank you guys for this great conversation. And, come see us every third Thursday.
Cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.